Thank you for that introduction, Edwin. Hi, as Edwin has said, I'm the Development Manager at Christchurch City Council. I've been the Development Manager there for about the last 4 years. And when I took over, we were very much traditionally waterfall, and most of our projects were led with the waterfall process. So what I'm going to talk about today is more about the story of how we introduced Agile at Christchurch City Council. There was a lot of things going on at the time. Obviously there was earthquakes, and we had to deliver systems a lot quicker than we previously had, and we had to be a bit more agile as well. It took a lot of courage from our staff, a lot of good leadership from my team leaders. We had a lot of commitment, and we also had some very good coaching and mentoring. So those are the sort of themes I'm going to talk about. As I say, this is a story, and with every story you'll draw your own conclusions. I'll just say there are no magic bullets, and there were things that went well and things that didn't go so well. Okay. Right, I'll give you a bit of the backdrop to why we introduced Agile. Obviously in Christchurch in 2011 we had some rather major earthquakes. We were displaced out of our building. We had people working all over the city, but we still had to deliver systems for Christchurch. This was mainly to support initially the emergency services teams. We had to get information out to them around a lot of our assets, where they were, and we also had to set up systems to help with the rebuild side of things, which was around things like Share an Idea, which was what we implemented around a new plan for the city. And we had to implement tools, and this is what, while working out of art galleries, people's lounges, and service centres that also ended up being found as not safe and having to move quickly. We were rising above, I would say, a historically poor reputation for delivering on projects. They tend to be very lengthy. We'd probably analyse them for months on end. So we had a lot of reputation to gain from actually delivering fast. We had no business accountability in our projects, so basically we were told to go away, do something and come back and deliver it. We were quite successful after the earthquakes, and there's a lot of reasons why I think we were successful, and that was because we were being agile. We didn't actually call it agile at the time, but we were being flexible. We had customers sitting beside us. We had requirements being evolved, and we were delivering benefits early. So in fact we were being agile, we just didn't have a name for it. So as I say, the earthquakes imposed some very unique problems for us. We had to do things differently, but I would like to say you don't need a disaster to try agile. So before the February earthquakes, I did know about Agile. I had recruited someone who was very keen on Agile. We trialled it. We didn't get much buy-in. We had a lot of scepticism, and basically what I was trying to do was deliver Agile through the back door, and with limited success. But in the second half of 2011, I had a conversation with Damien Brown, who was then from Claris, now they're Surety. And he talked to me about an opportunity that was being delivered out of Christchurch Development Corporation, and they were running a program of introducing Agile into organisations. It was part of a process improvement, business improvement program, and so I was very keen to take advantage of that because it was low cost and we were cheap as chips at council at times. So what I had to do then was convince my management team to actually attend, because one of the things I found is unless you get management support, you're not going to be successful with Agile. So I guess that's one of the big key takeaways from this. We went to some Agile training for 2 days. It was very hard to get my colleagues to actually take that time out in their calendars. But they all agreed. They could see that I was very passionate about this, and I thought, I'm really putting myself on the line here. If I don't get it, then I'm a bit screwed really. But the lovely thing was that my manager actually loved it, the rest of my team loved it, and we decided to give it a go. You'll see the quote from Gavin Till, my manager. He's the I'm City manager, and he loved its simplicity. And it is simple. Agile Scrum is simple, but it's very hard to implement. So I ticked the first box, get the manager on board, and now we had to start and we had to pick a project. So I said to my manager I'd like to implement it on the replacement of our building consenting system. He said, really? Basically, he was very sceptical about us using this project. You will probably know we've just gone live with building consents back in May, and it's been a very high-profile project because of our obviously losing ION's accreditation at council. But this wasn't part of that issue. We basically had to get something out there really, really quickly because we knew there was going to be a flood of consents. And so we picked a project and we picked one that was too important to fail. So that's what we did. In outdated consenting systems, the risks were very high. The technology wasn't the risk here, it was the people and the processes. Building consenting process is extremely complex, and although those who've been involved in it will understand how complex it really is. And we understood also the people under an enormous amount of pressure, and we're actually going in and changing a system that was very much like a 1920s paper-based system into a fully automated driven workflow. So, up against it, most IT projects fail, and so you have to ask yourself, how committed are you to Agile? And what if it fails, and what would we do? So we had to get the team on board, and how we did that was we sent them all to training. We had a lot of people who were very excited about Agile, and quite a few were quite keen to lift their head above the parapet and actually give it a go and become Scrum Masters in our teams. We had all the key ingredients for success. We had the management buy-in. We had very committed people. Our team leaders were committed. The staff were very competent at council. We've got some absolutely fantastically talented people. And we cared a lot about the people, we cared a lot about the organisation, we cared a lot about the community. We also had all the key ingredients for failure. We had very silo skill sets. We had a few stars in the team. We had people working as individuals and didn't know how to work in teams. We had testers being the gatekeepers for all quality. And we had a lot of disengaged customers. And customers with no accountability of what was being delivered. And let's face it, our department was pretty much a black box to most people in the organisation. There was no right place, there was no right time, and there was no right project. And as I say, speed to delivery was very imperative. The important thing, we had to start. So the next point I want to take away is get in the experts. Agile's not something you can learn out of a book. It's not something you can learn in the classroom. You actually have to experience the ups and downs of introducing Agile. So we got in some experts. Claris came along and helped us through the CDC program. We had some very close coaching. We had people actually on the floor. They provided us with Scrum Masters, and they did the day-to-day coaching. Now, it wasn't easy, and what we did find was that people took it in different ways. Some people really took to it, and some people didn't. A speaker just before me was talking about, some people are just not ready for it. And to be honest, some people just aren't ready for Scrum. And we had to help those people adapt. What we did find from having an Agile coach was we were able to get some guidance on what they felt was normal behaviour. A coach would have seen many organisations implement Agile, and they would have seen some common themes. So it was very important for us to understand, is this person behaving the way that you'd expect, or is it there's something extraordinary going on here and we might have to step in and help more. There will be different behaviours that will emerge, and how to deal with those was a challenge for my team leaders, but they did a fantastic job. Sitting there. If you're looking for a turning point, I don't think there was one. There was no magic moment of awareness. There were no epiphanies, and we had to adapt and learn. And so you might ask, what did we learn? We learned that we had to mine our hidden talent. We've got a lot of very talented people at council, and people might think that council, IT department's probably reasonably outdated. And I agree, some of our systems really are. But in other ways, we're very innovative. And we have to be, because we have limited budgets. We've got a lot of technical debt, a lot of legacy systems. But the team we have are very, very talented. But we had to get them all to work as a team. As I said before, we had lots of silos. lots of different experiences within the team. We had to have a personal plan for each person and to deal with them, very tailored. We had staff who had always shown that they had a fantastic talent in technology, but we didn't quite often see their leadership capability. And what we did find when we went through this process was that we had people who started to step forward. They might have started being very negative and very critical of Scrum because they didn't understand it. We had others going up to the board and trying to boss people around and say, well, you do this and you do that, which is not what Scrum is. But we also saw some people who managed to transcend that, managed to change their behaviour, and we managed to actually mine some of that talent and say, actually, you've got some really good leadership capability, and we really need you to let that shine. So we gave them some personal coaching to help them with that, to be able to grow their leadership skills. And this is a great thing about Agile and Scrum. It allows people to shine, but also allows the team to shine. I can't underestimate that Scrum is a process, and you need to be committed to spending the time with your people. Otherwise, your chance of success will be compromised. So the speaker before me talked about empowerment, and that's really important. It's all about the people. And as I say, we take team leadership at council very strongly, and it's a very important part of what we do as leaders. And it was really about getting these people to embrace what we were trying to do, but also help them, as I said, to transcend that. So we needed a change in culture. No, we won't be too full. From the beginning, we knew we had some staff on board, and we also knew we needed a change in culture. So as I said before, we sent staff off to Scrum training teams. We sent them on team building episodes. We also engendered a sense of comradeship, that we're all in this together. There's a real sense of that comradeship within Christchurch Agile community, which we also harnessed. We had some of our team members went out to different organisations in Christchurch who also have implemented Agile and Scrum, and they were able to see how they do it and the issues that they're having. And that was really important. We also managed to get people from other organisations come in and visit us as well and talk to us about their experiences. So that sense of comradeship is really important, and I think we're very lucky in Christchurch to have such a great presence in the Agile community. And I would really encourage people to get involved in that if they're looking at implementing Scrum, because it's very helpful to share ideas and to share experiences. We got the staff really committed to the change, and we got quite a few to cross that chasm, which was not at times always that easy, as I said. Peer pressure is amazing, and we saw that at work. We really saw people who actually stepped up because of their peers, and that's that self-organising teams. Now, I'm putting a rosy picture around this. It wasn't always that easy. We definitely had times where there was conflicts, but we had to respect the people and deal with those. So, change in leadership takes courage. My team leaders know their staff really well, and they were quickly able to identify those that were struggling. Each week we would meet to discuss, and we'd talk mostly about how we were going to assist them and help them, and who was struggling and who wasn't, and who we could pair them with. I mean, we very much in our team like everyone to feel the love, and that's essentially what we did. Everyone was important to us, and we made sure that they all felt that. If you're not prepared to also have those difficult conversations where someone's behaviour might now need to be addressed, then you aren't going to succeed in leadership or implementing something like Scrum. You must have those hard conversations. You owe it to your people to say, look, hey, this is how people are feeling. You need to step up, or you need to modify behaviours. The types of behaviours we saw: people standing back, arms folded, eyes rolling, being impatient, disengaged, looking at their cell phones. Those that wanted to take control, all of those about, those who would not share information, so information's power, people who wouldn't share. We would also find people would only take the simplest tasks off the board. That was an interesting behaviour that was going on, but obviously it's very exposed and very visible within Scrum. And those who seemed to never finish a task. Those stories on the board that went from 1 day to 6 hours to 5.5 hours to, and so forth. These weren't unexpected behaviours. We just had to make sure that we could address them. And as I say, that takes some courage and that takes good leadership. And obviously having the support and the team leader and that comradeship. So, stay committed would be my other important lesson. It's very easy just to give up because at times we felt, oh, this isn't working, this is getting too hard, what are we doing, have we done the right thing? You need to stay committed and you need to maintain that momentum. Claudia talked before in our keynote speech about momentum, and I know exactly what she means. You need to keep going, but you need to be able to be agile and change quickly with your staff. If you're serious about Scrum, you can't do it by half measures. You can't do, oh, I'll do a little bit of Scrum. I won't do retrospectives. We won't do daily stand-ups. You can't do it in halves. You might at times say, was this a really good idea? And you maybe decide not to. And we've actually had times where we've started out Scrum on a particular piece of work and decided actually this work doesn't actually suit the Scrum process. And we'll adapt and we'll adjust to that. So we're not saying, religiously we have to use it. If you lose your commitment, you will increase your chance of falling off the cliff. So staying committed. Personal leadership, both up and down. All staff now are working in teams. We have fostered honesty across the teams and with our management team. We've, as I said, brought in an Agile coach. We've actually not just Agile in the Scrum methodology, we have also had some assistance around test-driven development, continuous integration, automated testing. To give you a little bit of a backdrop to that, when I first started Council 7 years ago, we had no testers, we had no business analysts, we had no process, we had very little change management. So we've come a long way in that time. And you must celebrate team success and recognising individuals for their right behaviours and shine the light on these people, because in the past people haven't had an opportunity to shine, and Agile does allow people to shine. We've developed Agile principles, and we've developed charters for the team, and we're still struggling with what is done. So, in fact, what we're starting to do is looking at are we ready rather than are we done, because sometimes we're not even ready to start sprinting, and I think that was one of our dangers at the time. Oscar Wilde, nothing that is worth knowing can be taught. And as I said, you can't learn Scrum out of a textbook, and you can't really learn it sitting in a classroom. You can learn the principles, but actually doing it. It's the doing it, it's the failing, it's the picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, getting on with it, and adjusting expectations. So, lessons learnt, very focused on this. We learnt we can do waterfall in 2 weeks. Old habits die hard. 2 cross-functional teams don't fit within our organisation's position descriptions. So when someone says, well, that's not my job to do testing, I'm a software engineer, that was a challenge. You need to educate your customers. And I'll be completely blunt and honest, I don't think we did a good job of that. We did try, but I don't think we quite got into their headspace where they were at. Not all vendors are willing to follow Agile. Vendors quite often are waterfall. Quite often we're dealing with vendors who are also software development companies, and they don't do things Agile. So that didn't necessarily suit. And I'll give you an example of this. A system that we implemented did not have any way of moving code from a development environment into production. You had to rekey everything, configuration, rekey it across environments. There was no delta loads, so things like that. And of course, they had designed their software around a big bang approach, not an Agile approach. So those are some of the challenges we've had. Having stable environments. This costs us a lot of money trying to move code through environments, and we don't have stable environments. We're more stable now, but that was a big issue for us. The visibility at times is very frightening. So when you've got your manager sitting in the room and your team is standing up there saying we didn't achieve what we needed to achieve, we're behind schedule, we're being very visible, and that is quite often frightening. That's why it's so important to get your management buy-in. It's easy to blame the process, but the process only exposes the issues that were already there. Our customers both love us and they probably also loathe us at times. And some of us said it's like being on a train. If you diverge from the basics of Scrum, you'll quickly derail. Our governance over design could have done better. We haven't quite yet got through the emerging architecture because everything has to be nailed down at council before you can get budget, and then you want to change it, and that's a challenge. We deliver faster than planned, so we went through the money faster. The project money was only released yearly, and that doesn't fit with Agile. If you can deliver faster, but your program of work you're only allowed money drip fed to you, that can be a problem for organisations. We, the IMCT council, hold the budget, not the business owner. So there was a lack of buy-in from them. So this wasn't driven out of the business; this was driven from IMCT. And we're very keen to deliver value first, but the business doesn't necessarily understand what value meant. And I guess that's where we say we didn't really educate our customers. You must get full commitment from your customers if you're going to do Agile. So this is an example of one of our Scrum boards. Yes, we can. We can build it. And this is stories and sticky notes, and that was just one of our Scrum. We had 5 Scrum teams running on this project. It was significant. Success. So this is one of our general managers, Michael Aitken, Community Services Manager, very negative about IMCT. In the past, we ran our graffiti, we implemented a new graffiti management system at council, and he was the project sponsor, and this was what his comment was. He loved it, he loved the visibility, he loved that we delivered. So, I think I'll finish with you just got to stay optimistic. We achieved 86% engagement in the last engagement study in May, which had gone up by 3% again. And that was with a project that was what someone might call a Death March project. But we really, really worked on our people. And I think the takeaway today is that, it's about your people. It's about good leadership. Agile is just a process. And unless you've got that leadership there from your team leaders, your team, then I think you'll be battling. So, anyway, has anyone got any questions? I don't think we've got much time, have we? Because Stephen...
We've got a couple of minutes for questions. Anyone got any questions for Leonie?
You mentioned that because of the earthquakes, your teams had to be fairly distributed, and it was something I was discussing with Edwin earlier. What sort of challenges did that pose to the whole Scrum methodology?
Okay, so when I said the teams were distributed, it wasn't actually during this project, but we basically had team leaders driving around different places. We congregated in cafes, we congregated at people's houses. It was all about getting the people together, and where we could co-locate, we did co-locate. Yeah, so it was a challenge. But during this major project, we were back into our new building. We started out in the old Rexel building, which is where the bus exchanges, and then we moved back into our building before we really got in full flight.